Most people think mental strength is built in the hard moments. The crisis, the breakdown, the point where everything falls apart and you either survive or you don't. They're wrong. Mental strength isn't built in the fire. It was already there before the fire started. Or it wasn't. And by the time you're standing in the middle of the crisis, it's too late to build it. What gets tested in the fire is what was quietly constructed in the ordinary days. The days when nothing was happening. The days when nobody was watching. The days that felt too small to matter. That's where it was built or destroyed. Strength is not what a man does under pressure. It is what he quietly does when there is no pressure at all, and no one is watching to praise him for it. Here's what nobody tells you. Most people's mental collapse was not sudden. It didn't happen the day they broke down. It happened months earlier, in the small daily surrenders they made when no one was looking. The small negotiations they made with discomfort. The tiny habits they skipped because it wasn't that serious. The small moments where they chose the easier version of themselves. And those tiny choices accumulated, quietly, like water wearing through stone. Until one day, a situation arrived that required a person they hadn't bothered to become. This video is not about dramatic transformation. It's not about overhauling your life. It's about something far more dangerous, far more effective than anything requiring a complete reinvention. It's about the small, almost invisible habits that build a kind of mental architecture that holds when everything else collapses. Most people underestimate small habits because small habits have no immediate payoff. You do them and nothing happens. You feel the same. You look the same. Nothing changes in the short run. And that's exactly why most people stop doing them. But the person who continues anyway, despite the absence of reward, despite the silence, despite the invisibility of the progress, that person is already different. Not because of what they did, but because of what they proved to themselves about who they are. The first habit is this: do one hard thing before you need to. Not when you're forced. Not when circumstances demand it. Before the difficulty arrives. Before the pressure mounts. Before the world gives you no choice. Seek difficulty first, voluntarily, in small doses, every single day. This could be as basic as a cold shower, a conversation you've been avoiding, the task at the top of your list that you keep moving to tomorrow, the early alarm you keep snoozing, something small, something uncomfortable, something that costs you something, even just the cost of ease. The reason this works isn't physiological, it's psychological. Every time you voluntarily choose discomfort, you send yourself a message. The message is, I am the kind of person who does hard things without being forced. And over time, your mind starts to believe it. Not because of what you said about yourself, because of what you showed yourself. Ask yourself honestly, when was the last time you chose the harder thing when the easier thing was equally available? Most people can't remember. And that's the problem. Because the mind that only functions under pressure is not a strong mind. It's a reactive mind. It's a mind that requires the threat of consequence before it moves. That kind of mind is controllable. It can be manipulated. It can be collapsed simply by removing the consequence and replacing it with uncertainty. The mind that chooses difficulty without external pressure is something else entirely. It doesn't wait for permission. It doesn't wait for conditions to be right. It moves anyway. That's the first habit. Small, daily, voluntary discomfort. Do it before the world makes you do it. The second habit sounds almost insultingly simple. Finish what you start. Not the big things, the small things. The book you said you'd read. The workout you cut short by 10 minutes because you were basically done. The project you put 80% into and then quietly abandoned. The plan you made on a Sunday that you stopped following by Tuesday. Every time you leave something unfinished, you teach yourself something about your own word. You teach yourself that your commitments are conditional, that they apply when you feel like it, that they expire when the initial motivation does. And that lesson goes deeper than you think. Because your mind isn't tracking whether you finished a book. Your mind is tracking whether you're the kind of person who finishes. And every abandoned task adds another data point to the case against yourself. Most people are not aware of this accounting. They think unfinished things are just unfinished things, small failures, minor setbacks, nothing worth analyzing. But the mind builds a self-image from these patterns, and a self-image built from a pattern of incompletion becomes the invisible ceiling on everything you attempt. You stop starting things because some part of you already knows you'll abandon them. You dilute your effort because some part of you has already decided you won't finish. You hold back from committing because you've taught yourself that your commitments don't survive contact with inconvenience. The habit of finishing creates the opposite architecture. Start smaller if you need to. Make the commitment smaller. Make the task smaller. But finish. Completely. Every time. Because you're not building the task. You're building the person. The third habit is the one most people actively avoid, because it reveals something uncomfortable. Spend time alone, without distraction, regularly. Not meditating, not journaling, not listening to something, just silence. Just you with whatever thoughts arrive. This is where most people break before any crisis arrives. They cannot be alone with their own mind. They need noise. They need input. They need stimulation constantly. Not because they're curious, but because the absence of it forces them into contact with things they'd rather not face. The anxiety that doesn't have a name. The doubt that doesn't have a solution. The questions that don't have comfortable answers. So they fill every moment, every commute, every meal, every silence. They pour content into any gap before the quiet can say anything. And they call this productivity. They call it staying informed. But what they're actually doing is running. And you cannot build mental strength while running from your own mind. The person who can sit in silence without discomfort has developed something most people never do. A relationship with themselves that doesn't depend on external stimulation to be tolerable. That relationship is the foundation of every other kind of strength. Because when the crisis arrives, and it will arrive, the noise stops, the distractions disappear, the stimulation goes away, and you're left alone with whatever is actually inside you. What's inside you when the noise is gone? Most people don't know, because they've never let it be quiet long enough to find out. The habit is simple. 10 minutes of silence daily. No phone, no music, no input. Just your mind and whatever it does when it's left alone. Do this consistently and you'll discover something strange. The things you were avoiding don't disappear in the silence, but they lose their power over you. not because you solved them, because you stopped being afraid of meeting them. That is a different kind of strength entirely. The fourth habit is this: stop explaining yourself to people who didn't ask. This one is subtle. Most people don't notice they do it. You make a decision. Someone looks at you with mild curiosity, and before they've said a word, you're justifying the decision. You're explaining your reasoning. You're pre-defending your choice against a challenge that hasn't happened yet. You tell people why you're eating differently, why you woke up early, why you left early, why you're not drinking, why you're not available, why you're doing things differently. Every unsolicited explanation is a small act of psychological weakness. And what makes it insidious is that it feels like honesty. It feels like openness. It feels like you're just sharing yourself with people. But look at what's actually happening. You're preemptively defending your choices to avoid imagined judgment. You're seeking approval before anyone has withheld it. You're giving people the authority to evaluate your decisions before they've even tried to take that authority. You're handing it to them. Mentally strong people make decisions and move. They don't announce the reasoning. They don't perform the logic. They don't need the people around them to understand or agree or approve. The habit is to notice when you're about to explain something no one asked you to explain, and to stop. Just stop. Let the silence hold. Let your choice exist without commentary. You'll feel the pull to fill the silence with justification. That pull is the habit you're breaking. Feel it and don't follow it. Over time, something shifts. You stop needing the validation loop that unsolicited explanations were maintaining. You stop requiring external agreement before you can feel settled in your own decisions. Your choices become yours, fully, without needing an audience to ratify them. The fifth habit is one that will change the quality of your mind faster than almost anything else. Stop consuming other people's reactions before forming your own. Before you've had a single thought about something, a piece of news, an event, a situation, you're reading what other people think about it. You're in the comments. You're watching reactions. You're watching other people process the thing before you've processed it yourself. This habit has made most people's opinions secondhand. They think they have views. They don't. They have curated collections of other people's views that they've mistaken for their own. They can't tell the difference anymore. And when you can't distinguish your own thinking from borrowed thinking, your mind becomes fragile. Because your views aren't rooted in anything real. They're rooted in whoever influenced you most recently. The next influence can dissolve them without resistance. The habit: encounter something first. Think about it first. Come to your own conclusion first. Even if the conclusion is uncertainty, even if it's incomplete, even if it's wrong, then look at what others think. This simple reversal trains you to trust your own cognition. It builds a mind that doesn't require external confirmation to function. It makes your views genuinely yours. Something you can defend, not because someone else agreed, but because you actually thought it through. That's the kind of mind that holds under pressure. Not because it has all the answers, because it trusts itself to find them. The sixth habit is the most underestimated. Do things no one will ever see. Work that goes unacknowledged. Effort with no audience. Quality applied to things that won't be evaluated. Most people's performance is inseparable from observation. Remove the observer, and the performance degrades. Give them an audience, and they find extra effort they couldn't access in private. This is a form of dependency. It means the standard is externally maintained, and anything externally maintained can be removed from the outside. The person who applies the same standard in private and in public isn't performing. They're expressing who they actually are. And that person doesn't collapse when the audience disappears, when the praise stops, when no one is watching, when there's nothing to prove and no one to prove it to. Because their standard was never about being seen. Make this a habit. Do something well when there's no possibility of recognition. Not symbolically. Actually, put in real effort on something no one will ever measure. You are building the standard that will hold when everything else gives you a reason to lower it. The seventh habit is simple, and most people skip it. Keep one promise to yourself every day, not a promise to anyone else. One promise to yourself, small, specific, unambiguous. And then keep it. The relationship you have with your own word is the most important relationship in your life, and most people have quietly destroyed it. They've made and broken so many private promises, commitments about waking up earlier, stopping certain habits, starting certain practices, that some part of them no longer believes their own intentions. They know they'll negotiate. They know that when the moment comes, they'll find a reason why today is an exception. And that knowledge sits beneath everything, every goal, every plan, every aspiration. There's a quiet voice underneath all of it saying, you probably won't follow through. One kept promise a day begins to change that voice. Not dramatically, not overnight. Slowly, the way quiet things always work. Until one day you make a commitment to yourself and the voice underneath says, yes, this is happening. That is the foundation of everything. Not motivation, not inspiration, not a perfect plan. The habit of keeping your own word in private to yourself when no one is watching and nothing is on the line. Everything described in this video is small. None of it is dramatic. None of it will be visible to the people around you while it's happening. No one will applaud the silence you sat in. No one will know about the promise you kept to yourself at 6 a.m. on a Tuesday when you didn't feel like it. No one will see the internal shift that happens when you stop explaining yourself and simply move. And that's exactly the point. Mental strength is not built in the visible moments. It's built in the invisible ones, in the gap between who you are now and who you're becoming. Most people are waiting for the right conditions to build it, the right circumstances, the right level of motivation, the right amount of time. But the right conditions are never coming. There is only today, and the small choice you make in it. The person who understands this builds something quiet and solid over time. The person who keeps waiting builds nothing. But there's something deeper beneath all of this. Something the small habits point toward that we haven't fully named yet. Because the question was never really about habits. It was about what you're willing to face about yourself when everything comfortable is removed. That's where this actually goes. And that's a different conversation entirely.